to this week's 8-week series. This is week 1. Inside of this time together, I'm going to really unpack major pieces of the book that I've put together. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I have found that a lot of us has transitioned from the traditional Christianity, and it could be Baptist, it could be Word of Faith, it could be Pentecostal. You may have been Catholic, or you may not have been anything, and you just want to get a deeper understanding. So I present from a metaphysical perspective, and also present from the perspective of having spent 40 years in ministry. And part of that, I was just a teacher. Part of that, I was a minister. Part of that, I was pastor. The vast majority of that, I was pastoring. Brother Al, who is on here tonight, has probably been with me since the early 90s. I was introduced to him by his mom when I first went to work with the federal government. She said, I got 2 sons you need to meet. And I got to meet both of them, great guys. One has been with me as my audio visual person, soundboard man, all sorts of things over the years. So I want to just let you guys know that Al has a significant relationship with me as far as ministry. So he can vouch for the things I say. So I don't fabricate. When I tell you some strange stories, when I tell you some miraculous things, he was behind that camera. Awesome. So we're going to get started. So this series is designed to help you understand and apply the principles of divine timing. So I see my mom trying to get in too. Tell her to go to the email. Let me tell her that so she can get in here. And then we're just going to go ahead. A couple people we may begin. Hey, Lonnie, it's good to see you. Rachel, it's good to see you. I'm going to see you guys on here. Let me see if I see. Let me open it up. So allow to talk, and then I'll get you guys on the screen, but your mics are muted. So, hey, Rachel, you want to say hello?
Hello.
Hey, where you calling in from, Rachel? We got some people on the line, so they know where you're coming in from.
Greenville, Mississippi.
Greenville, Mississippi, down in the what's they call that? The valley, not the valley. It's another word for the Delta. It's Greenville.
The Delta.
Yeah,
You're in the Delta.
Yeah, that's where my people's from. Down in the Delta. We have to talk about that. Awesome. Well, welcome to this evening. You can go ahead and mute yourself back. Lonnie, if you want to say hello, you can tell us where you're calling in from.
Riverdale, Georgia. Hello to everyone.
Hello, Riverdale, Georgia. That's right outside of Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Clayton County, right below Fulton.
Right. That's where all the rich people live. Good.
I receive it. Yes, I receive it.
Right. Good. Well, welcome aboard, Lonnie. Lonnie been with us for what has been 2 years or so, Lonnie?
Yeah, about 2 years. That's correct.
Good. How'd you find your way here?
Just some research from one person to the next person to the next person, and you just stuck with my spirit, and I was like, okay,
Excellent.
let me see, and I've never left.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard this evening. So I had an interesting engagement about a week ago. I was at a hiring event. What I do with the VA, I go to hiring events and I talk to HR managers. And I was talking to this guy. Matter of fact, I've been trying to reach this brother for about 2 years. He would return the calls. We would make appointments, but we never really solidified that. So finally this day, I said, I've been trying to get a meeting with you for 2 years. And then he said, wait a minute. He says, are you on, do you do videos? I said, yes. He said, are you a SAR? And I said, yes. And so we struck up the conversation. He was elated to finally he had met me 2 years ago, but didn't really know that I was a SAR, the guy he was seeing coming to these events. So it's really funny how I meet people, and people have been following me for years. It's good to get you guys engaged this evening. So I want to kind of set the stage for what's going to happen in the next 8 weeks. So over the next 8 weeks, we're really going to drill down inside of my book that I'm putting together here, calling Understanding Divine Timing. Actually, the title of the book is The Divine Flow, Mastering Manifestations Through Trust and timing. Timing is a big part of either what you bring into fruition or what never comes into fruition, and how you handle this whole concept of time. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to see if I can get these slides to move for me here. There you go. So I want to welcome you to Transformation Tuesdays. I'm Asar, in the civilian sector. Many people know me as Greg Stanton. And during this 8 weeks, we're going to spend some time dealing with parts of my book. I'm not going to give you all of it, even though the people who I'm talking to, I believe, even if I gave you everything in the book, you still would invest in the book. So it's going to be a workbook, a book with the workbook accompanied it, so that way you can get transformation. I'm finding too many people are spending time gathering all this information, getting inspiration, but there's no transformation. And the reason why there's no transformation, because there's no application. So I really like to move through my teachings by giving you information, inspiring you to do the work, and then giving you things that you can work on. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do during this 8 weeks that we're together. So yeah, I'm told you I got this new slide deck I'm working with. So session objectives. First of all, we want to understand what divine timing is. So I'm going to spend some time unpacking the profound concept of divine timing and its transformative role in personal manifestation. The second thing we want to do is we want to look at reframing our perceptions. And what I'm talking about here is transforming how we perceive obstacles into opportunities for growth. We always talk about things are always working out for me, but as soon as things show up that don't appear favorable, or it appears to be a roadblock, we forget to say that. And so we want to make sure we do that. Okay, that was Myrna Todd trying to get in. So I'll circle back to her. The third thing we want to come away with this evening as an objective is we want to talk about the concept of trust. We're cultivating trust. That means developing a resilient, unwavering faith in divine orchestration of your life's path. That is, you got to stick with it. You got to be resilient. You got to know that it works if you work it. And I like to say it works when you work it. Another thing that I want to add to the time that we spend together is how to apply biblical and real world lessons on divine timing. And the reason why I say biblical, because most of us, the vast majority of my audience, are individuals who are open at the top, meaning they are not closed-minded. They perhaps are coming by way of, like the old church, we would say, by way of a Christian experience. So I capitalize on that. I tell you, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Your experience was the experience that you were born into. There's some value there. Just like if you were born into a Islamic family and their belief system, there's some value there. Whatever you were born into, there's some value there. But as you grow, you have to expand beyond that what you know. And that what you know is that what you are familiar with. And so, but I like to start with the familiarity. So you will hear me oftentimes taking us back to scriptures that we know in our heart of hearts, but we haven't unpacked them for the maximum influence of those scriptures. So I pulled those in. So we're going to look at a few well-known African-American figures tonight. I may pull in a little bit about Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Barack Obama, and Maya Angelou, how that integrates in tonight. I'll see how it shows up. Okay, let's start with a grounding exercise. And this is the first night. If it was any other night, this would have happened earlier. But I want us to just get centered and focused on right here and right now. The most powerful thing that you have is your breath. We don't pay enough attention to our breath. We don't fully exercise our breath. And if you ever want to get focused, if you ever want to recenter yourself, it's simply all it takes is to focus on your breath. And the one thing that you need to know, when you're focusing on your breath, it's impossible to focus on your breath and think about things. So one way that I settle my monkey mind down. But when I get all these thoughts coming through my mind, I'll just stop in the middle of my day and I'll reset, recenter, refocus myself with breath. So right where you are, you're in a safe space. I want you to just close your eyes and take a big breath in, hold it. Now release it through your mouth all the way down. And as you come to the bottom of the breath, take a big breath in through your nostrils, filling up your lungs, hold it with gratitude, allowing every cell, every system, every organ, the entirety of your physically formed being to be infused with the elixir of life. Now exhale through your mouth, releasing, relaxing, letting go of that which once served you but no longer serve you. Now, as you come to the bottom of the breath, let's move into one more breath together. Big breath in through the nostrils, hold it. Now exhale, releasing, relaxing, allowing all the way down. And as you come to the bottom of the breath, you open your eyes and just continue to breathe in and out at your own pace as we move into this evening's presentation. So it's important that we understand divine timing. How many of us, all of us, can ask this question to ourselves? Have we ever felt frustrated when something didn't happen as quickly as we desired it to? And that happens to all of us. We expect something, we pray for something, we feel good about that thing, but then there's the delay. And that delay actually is that thing that gets in the way of many of us really seeing the thing we desire come to fruition. It doesn't come to fruition because what we are doing is like a farmer who sows a seed. We go back to that seed and we dig it up. And when we dig up that seed, we open that ground up, it aborts the process or it starts the process over. So many of us have things that we've asked for. The word says, asking is given, but why haven't I gotten it? Because we don't understand the process. And so part of what this conversation about understanding divine timing is looking at the illusion, okay, of time, but also realizing there is a divine time that encapsulates past, present, and future all in one. When we talk about divine time, we're talking about a collapsed time that everything is already happened. Now, where you focus at is what brings one of those possibilities into fruition. Just like, okay, there's a possibility of something favorable and there's a possibility of something unfavorable. And if we don't understand how divine timing works, then we will find ourselves focused on the unfavorable thing because it's not manifested. And because we are paying attention to that, what we're doing is we're collapsing it. So I talk about collapsing a possibility. The possibility that you focus on, the possibility that you hold in intention is, in fact, the possibility that comes into fruition. So that's important that we understand that. If we don't understand that, we're going to find ourselves truly being frustrated in so many ways. And I want to get us away from being frustrated. And the only way we can do that is become knowledgeable about the things that are getting in the way. Yeah, so that's important. There's a few people that can give us some examples of divine timing. When we look at Oprah Winfrey, she was fired from her first anchor job. She found her true platform, embraced redirection as a divine opportunity, and she transformed the setbacks into triumphs. If you ever get the opportunity to read her story, you'll be amazed at what she went through to get to where she was and how she always saw herself in that role even when she was far from the role. Same with Tyler Perry. You know, he himself had many years of struggle, that prepared him for success. I remember when he was on what I would call the chicken circuit, where he was just going from city to city with his stage plays, and look at him now. So we have to learn to appreciate the lessons in our individual journeys. Sometimes by reading someone else's autobiography, you can begin to resonate with their stories, but each one of us are authentic. No two stories are alike. And then all of us know Barack Obama, how he lost his first race, which ultimately led to the presidency. You know, he's from Illinois, or he was a senator, I believe, in Illinois. I remember seeing him in Chicago. I was out one night on the South Side, um, stopped by this place on the South Side to have dinner, and he was there. And he was just like a regular person. This is before he moved into the Senate, and he got up and he was running for the Senate seat, and he got up and made a great presentation. He was very conversational. And he did it, and he made it. He became the first president, and I don't think we celebrate that enough for whatever reasons. And sometimes we expect someone who steps into a role of leadership to be that individual who save us. But this is the conversation. We save ourselves. That's important. We have to understand that we are divine spiritual beings, and we have given ourselves away. We've given our power away. And the way we've done that is we've believed that someone has to come to save us. Someone comes to deliver us. And even our traditional approach to Christianity has caused that to happen. We expecting a Jesus to save us. But he didn't come to save us. When you really read the story, you understand that he came to reconnect us. He came that we may be remembered. So that's really important. So the river of divine timing. We want to understand that a river flows without struggle. We must trust rather than force. Often you hear me talk about rowing your boat. Row your boat gently up the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily. Life is such a dream. We already know that that's incorrect. We were taught in kindergarten, row your boat gently down the stream. And too many of us, we are rowing upstream. We are resisting the flow of life. So I like to use the river as a metaphor. When you get into the stream of the river, you get there based on the flow of the river. Now, you may assist it, but I really encourage people, when you're in the river, you just use the oars just to guide you so you don't run into the curve in the river, to stay in midstream. So you use it to stay in stream. And so your efforts, things you do throughout the day, should keep you in the flow, should keep you in the stream. When you become anxious about something, when you become stressing over when or how something's going to happen, you actually are rowing in the other direction. So we have to learn to row in the direction of the stream. I like Abraham Hicks. If you guys are not familiar with Abraham Hicks, you might want to get turned on to Abraham Hicks. And one of the things that Esther, who was the lady who channels Abraham, the energy, she talks about being in the stream. And she has a story about how she and her husband used to go rowboating, and that the beauty of going with the flow of the stream, that you don't get tired as fast. And then when you do tire, you can just go with the natural flow. The one thing about the stream, it'll get you there right on time. It'll get you, it can move fast in certain areas, and sometimes it slows down. Sometimes it even come to a standstill, and you may give a little assist to just keep yourself moving in momentum. So I really want you all to know that when you get in the stream, that's when we talk about being in alignment. Everything is energy. The words we use to describe what's going on impact how we feel, and then how we feel impacts how we think, and then you get caught in this vicious circle. So it's important that we understand that there is a divine timing. And I liken it to being in the river, and the river gets you where you need to get to at the right time. And you just said, no, I will get where I need to get to at the right time. What's meant for me gets to me, and that's important. So some of the key concepts that we want to look at when we talk about divine timing, I want you guys to really come away with understanding divine timing has some components to it. One of the components is universal order. Everything is in order in the universe, even when it appears to be out of order. The divine timing reflects a universal that is governed by harmony. Harmony means things work in collaboration. Things harmony means that one thing accents or brings a greater appreciation for something else. Like when you look at a orchestra, they play in harmony, and you can tell when one of the instruments is out of harmony. When it's in harmony, all the instruments are authentic, but they give us a beautiful piece. Events align perfectly beyond our control. When we really learn to go to it with the flow, and we can say, all things are always working out for me, that's harmonizing with life. Also, synchronicity. It's about events aligning in perfect harmony. Recognizing these synchronicities reveal a grand design. Yes, that's something that we have to understand. Things is like things just happen. You ever felt like you were just in the right place at the right time? And the reason why you was in the right place at the right time, because you were synced up with the universe, going with the flow, listening to your inward witness. Your inward witness may say, okay, you wake up, but then you say, I'm just going to slow around today. I'm not going to rush. But then you find yourself, when you do get out in it, you see there's a big calamity at the intersection. And if you kind of time it, you probably would say, wow, if I would have disregarded my silent partner, I would have been in the middle of a crash. I've seen that numerous times when I knew I should be somewhere at a certain time, but things were just synchronizing that I couldn't get out on time, but I really did get out on time. And that's how you have to live your life. And that means you got to trust. You got to trust the process. A lot of people don't know anything about the process. It's just not just trusting God, but trusting the process. Trust that all unfolds as it should, that divine timing asks for you to apply your faith. And what is the application of faith? When you apply principles, you're walking by faith. Faith isn't this woo-woo, I hope it happened. Faith is understanding a principle. You sit in that chair because you see the principle that it has four legs, or it has one leg, but it has a base that can hold it up. Just looking at that chair automatically, it's designed within the principle that will hold me up. And so faith is understanding the principles and walking in the principles. We live by faith. We live by the principles. So that is so critical that we understand that. Now, let's talk a little bit about illusions. Here in this seed, some of you may know what that seed is, some of you may not. The roots must grow deep before the tree appears above the ground. So this seed will never actualize. And the reason why I use the word actualize, because it's already a tree, but it will never grow into the oak tree that it should, until it's put in the ground. And it allows the process of being planted, being crushed, what appears to die, and then there's a birthing. So we, like this seed, have to be cracked. That is, we so over-identify with our shells. We identify with the fact that we are human. We identify with the skin we're in. We identify with the curvature of our bodies, the height, the weight. All of these things, when you ask, who are you? You will define yourself based on externals. Okay. And we got to get beyond that. because we're more than the container that we see. Now, I want to do an exercise right now. Right now, I would like each of you to take a moment. On three, I want you to point to yourself. 1, 2, 3. Everybody did it? Now, notice where your finger is at. Now, I want you, if you would, one by one, if you could unmic yourself and tell me where you pointed to. Cheryl, what did you point to?
My heart.
Okay. Todd, what did you point to?
My face.
Okay. Lonnie, where did you point to? You just unmute yourself. Yeah.
My throat.
Your throat. Okay. Rachel, where did you point to?
My heart.
Al, where did you point to?
To my throat.
Throat. And then, okay, good. Well, metaphysically, if I was in a coaching session with you all, those of you who were pointing through your to your throat, I would ask yourself, maybe it's something the Spirit is saying to you that you really need to stand in your voice, or you need to watch what you're saying. You need to understand that your power is in your voice. When you point to your face, I will have to kind of think about what that represents. But most people, when I do this in a live audience and I ask people to point to themselves, we naturally point to our hearts. We don't even point to our head. We don't point to the fact that we are thinking beings, but we point to our hearts, which represents we're really feeling beings. But when you do an exercise like this, where you point says something. And that would be something that I'm willing to really explore. For those who pointed to the throat, pointed to your face, that'll be interesting. So I'm going to kind of think about that tonight, and I'm going to shoot you guys that back to you. And the reason why I had us do that, because we are energy beings. We are feeling beings. And with that being said, that all the words you use have a energy measure to them. And the words you use will dictate how you feel. And so when we are creating, we want to make sure that we have the right words. And another thing about words, it's important that when we're playing in the imagination, we have to increase our vocabulary. And sometimes we become lazy. When we are describing the thing that we desire, we don't really get into the weeds, into the detail. But the more you can get into the detail of describing that thing, when you describe it in your mind's eye, ultimately it impacts your heart. The heart magnetism is much more powerful than the magnetism of the brain. When we say mind, most of us think about the brain. But when I say mind, it's really the heart. It's really that heart center where the spark of source that is in you resides. It don't reside in your head. Now that's interesting, because if you know anything about Egyptology, when a person died, our ancestors would do the weighing of the heart was one thing, and they would take the heart out. They didn't take the brain out and put it in one of those jars. They put the heart in the jar, because the essence of who you are is measured by your heart. And so that's an important part of manifesting, creating, magnetizing. If you don't feel it, it ain't real. Until you feel it, it's not coming. If it's just in your head, you're just being led. But if it's in your heart, you're being fed, meaning it's going to be fruitful. So we want to be careful of illusions. And when we talk about illusions, we want to talk about how sometimes things appear as though nothing is going on, but things are always going on. Many people struggle with divine timing because they believe that their desires are being withheld from them. But what I want to really get you to see is this, that nothing is being withheld from any of us. Every event in our lives is simply the out picturing. Listen to that. Everything that is going on in your life right now is an outpicturing of the state that you currently occupy. What's on the outside is a reflection of what's on the inside. So you may say, I've waited for years for my desires to manifest. But let me ask you a question. How much of the time was spent in the state of already having it? Or how much time was spent in the state of getting it or it's coming? Until you can get into the state of already having it, you don't get it. So if you see yourself as someone who is waiting, then waiting is exactly what you will experience. If you see yourself as someone who deserves but hasn't received it, then you will live a perpetual longing. But if you see yourself as the individual who already possesses the desire in consciousness that's in your knower, then the season of fulfillment is now. That's important that you know that. That's important. So the oak tree is an oak tree even when it's a seed. Some see the seed and some see the oak tree. The sower sows the seed because he sees an oak tree. The sower sows whatever seed that he sows because he sees that thing in the end. He don't just sow a seed hoping that this seed will be something. He chooses his seed. And likewise, we have to learn to choose our intentions, be deliberate, be intentional on what we're bringing into fruition. Many times, the things that we are attempting to bring into fruition are being delayed because we are not really haven't determined that to be the thing we really desire. Many of our desires are coming by way of what we're seeing in the media, what we're seeing in society. But your desires, unless your desires come from the inside, that's where they're birthed from, not from the outside. So that's important. I want you to really know that you got to be careful of the idea of a delay. Every delay, apparent delay, appears to be a delay, is not a denial. Okay, it may mean not now, that the timing isn't right. Okay, what if the waiting is actually a gift? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about when you actually desired something, but it didn't show up? Or then when it did show up years later, you're like, wow, it took a long time for that to get to me. So one of the metaphysical keys or insights that I cover in this chapter has to do with delays are not roadblocks. They are redirections towards a greater alignment. So when things appear to be going slow, you have to just say, well, it's not time yet. You want to embrace this truth to shift from frustration to trust. You want to see delays as part of a greater divine plan. Everything is unfolding in its perfect time. And that's one of the things I often would say when I get frustrated. Things are unfolding in their proper time. It has already happened. And sometimes you have to just keep saying that to get that thought out of your mind. I'm going to talk about the 68-second principle and later on in the book, where when you have a thought, what you do with that in the 3 sets of 16, 17 seconds determines if that thought takes roots or it deepens. So you got 68 seconds to get a negative thought out of your mind, to replace it. But you got to know how to do it in an easy breezy way without force, because if you force it, it's giving more energy to that. So that's something we're going to explore. We also want to understand that at first glance, a delay may seem like a frustrating obstacle, something standing in between you and your desire. It's keeping you from reaching your goal. But from a higher metaphysical perspective, delays are not denials, nor are they hindrances. Instead, we should look at them as something that serve as a divine redirect. It ensures that you receive exactly what is meant for you in perfect alignment with your consciousness, readiness, and your highest good. So that we want to understand that there's a purpose for delays also. A delay is not an arbitrary event. It's not life working against you, nor is it proof that your manifestation is failing. And many people say this stuff don't work, and it doesn't work. It hasn't worked because they haven't worked it properly. Instead, a delay should be looked at as a sign that something is still being redefined, is being shifted, or being aligned, or you being prepared. You know, there's times in my life when I had a major windfall that I believe that I had manifested this. But one of the things you have to also know, when you manifest it and you celebrate having received it, are you also ready to keep it? Do you know what it takes to keep it? Like you might manifest a mansion, but then you don't like to keep a 2-bedroom apartment clean. So now you've manifested a problem. Sometimes life will always give you what you ask for, even if it doesn't represent your highest and greatest good, because you're not going to maintain it and you're not going to keep it. But ultimately, it is for your highest and greatest goods because you learn, I didn't need that. And too many people are seeking to manifest things just based on a material level. But your manifestations should be aligned with what your call is. Example, if you're called to be a public speaker, part of your manifestation should be the proper attire, should be able to keep your haircut and groom yourself. So those are the things that, so if you're if you're getting your haircut all the time, if you're wearing the different quality of clothes, because money knows money. Individuals can look at you and see it doesn't have to be a name brand, or the brand don't even need to be seen. But you can look at a person to tell when they got a quality shirt on, a quality shoe, or a quality garment. And that person were able to manifest those things because it's part of who they are to be. So you might say, wow, why do I like the finer things in life? Then you probably are called to be in a fine place in life. So you got to put it all together. But I really want you all to know that manifestation is not about materialism for the sake of amassing stuff. Because there comes a point where you got to get to what I like to call your godly point of satisfaction. The point where you don't need 5 cars. The point where you may say, I just need a black suit, a gray suit, a brown suit, or a beige suit, a blazer. So you got a basic wardrobe that you can flip. You don't have to have a closet full of clothes. Sometimes we overdo it. And we get too heavy with material things. We become so dense that we are not really open for spiritual things. That's important. So what we call delay is often the universe's way of organizing events for us, putting things in proper perspective. But we have to learn to trust. That's really key. So we want to dissolve the illusion of delay. How do you get rid of it? First of all, resisting the divine flow. You want to identify ways that you may be resisting what's meant for you, recognizing patterns of control that block your path and releases resistance. Example, sometimes your beliefs can get in the way. Okay, so you have to check out what it is you believe. If you have a belief system that is contrary to what you're seeking to create, like if you think you are a human being and you operate as a mere human, you say things like, I'm only human, then you will not ever be able to walk in the divine essence that's required for you to have the mastery of life. So as a result, you're going to have a resistance. So you got to find out what are some of the resistors that are getting in the way of my being in alignment with, being in attune with the divine. Okay. First of all, we have to understand, until you can realize that I and the Father, or I and the divine universe are one. All of us are one with it. All of us are one with an aspect of it. But there's a oneness of being the whole. And everything that you desire is already created. This is something that will help you dissolve the illusion of delay. Everything is already created. It was created from the very moment where we read in Genesis 1, when source says, it is finished, it is done. Anything that is to be created that will ever come forth has already been created in the invisible realm. Now that's deep. The scripture tells us, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with source, and the word was source. I like to say it like this. Neville Goddard says, in the beginning was the imagination, and the imagination was source. And without the imagination, there is nothing that has been created that would have been created. So everything we desire to bring into fruition must first be imagined. The seed is the imagination. The thought is planted deeper in the darkness of your consciousness, and it cultivates it, incubates it. So we want to understand that what we seek is already in motion. You want to trust that the unfolding of its perfect timing, and you see the potential becoming real. So whatever it is, you can look at a situation, you can say, what are the possibilities here? And then you identify the possibility you desire to collapse, that is to bring it into the visible. So the invisible has innumerable amount of possibilities that you haven't even thought of. But as we move through time, the things we would not have thought of, like thousands of years ago, they didn't think about flight. Then they thought about the wheel, and they thought about the horse and buggy, and then it all evolves. Now we have cars, and now we're moving to the place where we fly everywhere. And I believe there's going to be a place where we'll be able to teleport. There's some things that's going on in science that we are realizing that we're more powerful than we've been led to believe. So everything is already created. You just have to bring it into fruition. And you have to understand you have to bring it into fruition, not a God out there, not somebody else, but you bring it into fruition. So we have to learn to live in harmony with divine timing. Now, it's easier said than done. To say that I'm going to live in harmony with divine timing. It's so easy to fall into what I like to call the traps of what is going on. You see in this image, there's a metronome. And what that thing does, that instrument is used when someone is learning music. It helps them keep the pace. And so people use the metronome. So we have to listen for the pace. And if you're not listening for the pace, you're going to have a lot of resistance. And I want us to learn how to move away from the resistance. Resistance can be the reality of what we're seeing showing up in our lives. And so we got to learn how to move away from that. When we talk about live in the present moment, Neville Goddard talks about living in the now. If you ever had the opportunity to read the brother that he wrote the book called the Power of Now. He skips me right now, but that's a good book that talks about being present to the right here, right now. We have to learn that there's no yesterday, because the moment you think about yesterday, you bring it into today. There is really no tomorrow, because the moment you think about tomorrow, you bring it in today, but that usually ends up in frustration because you are thinking about what you desire to be right now, but it's in tomorrow. And guess what? Tomorrow never comes. So we have to understand the present moment is all that we have, but you can live your present moment from the place of the past, or you can live your present moment in a place of the future, the thing that is afar off. But the goal is to live present, to collapse. We want to collapse the time. So we maximize what has happened. We maximize the possibility of what could happen, but we stay present in the now, because all that really matters is now. We got to learn how to cultivate our faith and not fear. And we cultivate our faith by learning. It's like riding a bicycle. You learn that you got to learn how to use balance. You got to learn how to use momentum. And once you skillfully learn those things, you're not doing anything magical. You just come in alignment with the law of gravity, the law of momentum. And now you don't have the fear of falling. But if you don't understand that I got to first get balance, I got to keep enough momentum and keep the momentum and the balance working together. Otherwise, I'm going to fall. I remember when I first learned how to ride a bicycle as a kid. I failed so many times. I had this scab, and all of you guys probably can identify with that scab that was on our knees from learning how to ride a bike, or learning how to skateboard. So when we learn the principles, learning how to jump double dutch, how many got swapped across the back with the double dutch rope until you learn how to get that timing in. And life is like that. Life is like a jumping double dutch. Sometimes you so in the sync, you can do all kind of things. You can flip, you can do turns, you can do double jumps and all that kind of stuff. But then you get tangled up. And what do? You get thrown out the vortex and you get back in. Same thing with life. When things are going good and all of a sudden you get thrown out and things appear to be going bad, all you got to do is you get back into the vortex. Abraham Hicks does a lot of teachings on getting in the vortex, aligning, attuning. And it's like Michael Jordan, when he was playing basketball, he was in the zone. And every great athlete gets to the zone to really bring forth their greatness. We want to also celebrate the unseen progress. That's gratitude for me. You want to always find things to be grateful for. You might want to start your day in the morning. Before you put your feet on the floor, identify what you were grateful for from yesterday. It could be the warmth of the sun coming in through your window. It could be the fact that you have heat in your car. It could be the fact that you had 3 meals or you had one good meal on yesterday. It could be something serendipitous that came into your life. You ran into an old friend or you made a great connect. Sometimes we don't celebrate the synchronicities, the serendipitous moments in life. Now, number 5 is key. We must release attachments to outcome. Too many of us are looking for the outcome outside of us instead of the outcome that comes from the income. Here's the income that I see it on the inside and I believe it, and therefore I receive it. If you're waiting to see it on the outside and then receive it and you believe it, you got it backwards. Everything starts on the inside. Life is an inside game. And so we have to not be so tied up to the outcome that we want to see. A lot of times we, and here's how I do that. I have an image, a vision of what I desire. But then the scripture says, source desires to do exceedingly abundantly above anything you can ask or think. Coming out of it's from 2014 to about 2018, I was homeless. Not in the sense of a traditional homeless person you street on the street, but we were on the same thing. I didn't have no place to hang my hat, really. I didn't have a address that had me on the lease. So I was homeless. I slept in my office for a year. Nobody knew that. I was wise enough to know I get cheaper rent by paying $700 a month for an office to work out of. Happened to get it in an office building that was open 24 hours a day. And they used to ask me, wow, you're here late at night. And I told you, I got clients who are in other zip codes and in other countries. So I was wise enough to know Source made a way. It made a way. And then so I just have tons of stories of how walking in alignment with, and sometimes it doesn't show up how you thought it would, but the word says you never see the righteous forsaken or its seed begging bread. And we have to really know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's how life is. And I have so many serendipitous moments about during the Christmas season. I was cleaning. I just so happened to be cleaning up. I had paper everywhere and I was cleaning up and I had put all this stuff together and we took it down to to the trash room, and I was just throwing the paper out. But then I threw some boxes over and into the recycle bin, and 3 pieces of mail slid out. Now I could have just said, it's recyclable, but my silent partner said, open it up. Open it up. And I had this piece of three pieces of mail for I think I had it for about 6 months, and it was 3 checks from IRS. And I was like, wow. And guess what? It was right on time. It came during the holidays, So things always show up at the right time. Even though I had it 6 months ago, if I would have opened it 6 months ago, it would have been gone 6 months ago. But the universe worked with me. But it also let me know, hey, it's time for you to open that. And so you just sync up with source and know it's going to get you where you need to get to. So releasing the need for things to happen when you want them to happen, how you want them to happen. It's just for you to know that you desire for it to happen. And that's really important there. Let's see here. Okay, the season is now. Okay, a lot of times we put things off, but we don't have to keep putting things off. What we can learn to do is right now, we can learn that everything is now. And even though now may actually mean 6 weeks from now, but now means now. It means that even though it's not in the material world, it's in the spiritual world. And we live from the spirit to the natural. When you live from the natural to the spirit, you got it backwards, and you're going to be frustrated, and you're not going to really see what you want to see. So we got to know now is your season, not tomorrow, not a time far off. So divine timing is the maturation of your state. Okay, a baby is born in divine timing. The doctor may, through science, be able to say this baby's going to be born on this day, but seldom do the baby come on the exact day. It comes early or it comes late. But the what we learn from that is there is a maturation that must take place in the physical, as well as when we are creating something, we have to have the maturation, the state of being in our minds. So divine timing is the maturation of your state. So when I talk about state, that means first you plant the seed, and that is you define your desires and you plant them with intentions. So this is some internal work you're doing. And this says sometimes you don't want to share with other people what you're planning. The reason why you don't want to share it with other people what you're planning is because they may not have the faith that you have. Like when I was during the time of COVID, people forced me to have this conversation with them. They would ask you, are you taking the shot? And I just try not to even have to answer that. But ultimately they ask, and I will say, no, I'm not taking the shot. And then they go into this whole diatribe of conversation of why I should take the shot. But guess what? That wasn't my belief system. That wasn't the intentions that I was holding for myself. And so you have to be willing to stand your ground. And sometimes that means not letting other people know what you're desiring. Now, if you got people who are working the same processes that you're working, that way, if you're tripping up and saying the wrong thing, they may be able to help you correct what you're saying, or they can pick up your energy and say, hey, what's going on, and give you some solutions for that. But for the most part, you want to keep your seed sacred. You plant it in the sacred space of your mind, and then it begins to grow through intentions. Then you got to know that you got to nurture it. That is, you maintain the principles and the practices along with a positive expectation. Like I was talking to my son today, who is he's dealing with a level of homelessness, and so I said, Tony, how are things going? How are you? He said, I'm okay. I said, what are you up to? He says, just keeping a positive attitude. Then I said, what actions are aligning with your positive attitude? And he thought about it, because you can be positive all day long until the cows come home. But if you don't have some corresponding right actions, all you're doing is hoping. And hope lends for frustration. And ultimately, you'll get tired. So I was just encouraging him. So we had to learn to trust in the unseen process. Trust the the truth of growth. You want to know that it's going to happen. And the last thing is there's a harvest that comes with when you're in the right state of mind. You receive your manifestation and you accept the unfolding of your reality. But you don't wait for this to happen. You celebrate it until it happens. And what the until is the when it breaks into this realm. You celebrate it in the unseen until it breaks into the realm of the seen. So the word says, in whatever state you're in, find content. So if the state that you're in is not putting you in a place of contentment, that means you need to change your state. You need to look at what you're thinking. You got to look at your mental real estate. And then when you have the state of being that everything is working out for me, the state of being that everything is now, then you are in the right state of mind for things to suddenly happen. When we look at Joseph's journey, it happened at a point in time. You know the story of Joseph's journey. You know, he was sold into slavery by his brothers. He ended up being put in jail, Potiphar's wife, and all those things. But they were bridges of incidents. They led him to where he ultimately became the go-to person for, you know, in that story for Egypt. And so you're the same way. You have to know that when you have a situation, it's not a denial, it's maybe just a delay. It may just be that bridge of incident that's going to get you to where you see yourself going. But you got to be open. You got to be open to not my way, but your way. Because sometimes the incidents that happens either prepares you for something or gets you in the presence of someone. And so that's why when you look at everything as working out favorably for you, even when you don't know where the favor is in that thing, you got to be looking for it. So what is your role in divine timing? First of all, your role is to live in the end. What I mean here is you want to assume that your desire is already fulfilled. You don't look for signs. For signs follow faith. Okay? So you operate in faith. These signs shall follow those who know. I know we say those who believe, but believing and knowing is two different things, not the other way around. So that's important. You want to stop asking. You want to stop even decreeing, and you just want to start receiving. Those who ask are declaring that they lack it. The more you ask for it, you are saying that it's not in existence. But what is our assumption? Everything exists in the unseen realm. So we want to go to the unseen realm. Instead, you want to declare, thank you, source, it is done. Whatever word you use for source, if you want to use God, whatever makes you resonate at this time. So you want to be in gratitude. You also want to detach from, this is key. You got to get away from the how of it and the when of it. Too many of us, we spend too much time in how it's going to happen. We spend too much time in when it's going to happen. But we got to find a way to get away from that. Your only job is to saturate your mind with the feeling of fulfillment. Let the bridge of incident unfold as it must. Now, timing is one of the most challenging aspects of surrendering. We live in what we call linear time, where we measure progress by dates, deadlines, tangible milestones. But the divine does not operate by the human calendar. We often think about how long is it going to take? We got to get away from that. Example, if you're waiting for a new job opportunity, rather than asking, why is this job taking so long? You might want to ask yourself, what skills, mindset, growth can I cultivate so that I can step into the job fully prepared when the time comes? If you know you want a particular job and you know what the skill sets that should come with that job, during this time you should be assessing yourself. Do I have those skill sets? Or if I have the skill sets, have I used them? So divine timing of your manifestation is never late. It is always on schedule according to higher wisdom. Now, so when we talk about surrendering to the how is the method, process, the specific way in which we believe something must happen. However, the moment we try to control the how, we limit the infinite possibilities which are available to us. What do? When we fixate on one specific way, our desire should manifest. What we do is, in essence, we block the other better ways that it may want to unfold. When you fixate on, okay, I'm taking a vacation to the Bahamas, the first thing I fixate on is how much it's going to cost me. Automatically, you are saying that you got to pay for it. And automatically, you may say, well, I got to work overtime. Instead of fixating on, I desire to go to the Bahamas, and this is what I want to experience in the Bahamas, and allow the universe to, you may win a ticket. You may be called on a vacation because somebody had to cancel and they paid for it, but they can't get their money back. And they said, you can take the vacation. But if you say you got to go and make extra money, when I get the money, I'll go. Guess what? When is afar off. And so it never comes because you have spoken when into being. Okay, so the universe often delivers our desires in ways that we never could have predicted or orchestrated. Letting go of the how allows for divine intelligence to work through people, opportunities, circumstances, which are beyond not your control, but your current awareness. That's important. You want to trust the unfolding. Just as a mother does not force her child to be born before it's time, although some of them, I think my mother tried to force me out. She told me she took all kinds of things, tried to get me to come up out of there. And then when I started coming, she wished she hadn't. So you must trust that your assumptions will harden the facts in perfect. Now think about that. An assumption, something assumed, thought about frequent enough, ultimately will harden into a fact. So your assumptions that you hold, they harden into fact. So you got to make sure you have the right assumptions. That's why we look at our belief systems. That is important. So I want you to know that you got to be aware of what you are assuming. So you have a role in divine timing. You have to be taking the right actions, doing the right things. Okay. You are the creator of your season. I want you all to know that. When you look at Ecclesiastes 3:1, it's not telling you to wait for some higher force to determine the right time. You are the operant power. If you want it now, you can have it now. If you want to say someday off in the future, in the great by and by, the great by and by will always be the great by and by, and they'll never come into existence. But you are the creator of the season that you're living in. Important. So there is a role that your consciousness plays in delays. You want to ask yourself, am I entertaining doubt or disbelief? And so you listen to what you're saying. You look at what you're doing. You want to also say, have I fully assumed the feeling of wish fulfilled? And some of us never really do that. We become so imaginatively lazy that we don't want to use our imagination. But you got to use your imagination every day. You got to cultivate it. You got to ask yourself, am I living in the reality where my desire already exists? When you live from the place that it already exists, you live in a place of expectation. And guess what expectation does? it creates anticipation. And the ketchup commercial says, anticipation keeps me waiting. So when you really are living from the end, you're going to anticipate it, not in a anxious way, but in a soft way. Be anxious for nothing. Okay. So delays also happen when we are too attached to specific outcomes or timelines. The tighter we grip, the more resistance we create. The more you hold on to what you have, the more likely you won't get what you desire. But when we release, trust, surrender, what we do is we make room for divine timing to manifest itself. So when we're talking about aligning with divine timing instead of resisting, you want to deal with frustration. You got to make the necessary shift where you don't allow things to frustrate you. And you learn to do that by putting things in perspective. You want to spend time cultivating the wish fulfilled, living in the proper state of mind. You want to get away from the I got to know how this is going to happen or why this is going to happen. You want to detach from the how and the why. And you want to welcome the bridges of incidents. What they are the perfect unfoldings. When I talk about the perfect unfolding, you know, an accident can be the incident of a bridge of incident. You know, going to the store and the person in front of you, took so much time. And then when the cashier takes you on, the cashier may say, well, you know what, that transaction took extremely too long. I'm gonna give you an extra discount. That's a bridge of incident. Okay. So when we learn to surrender, we make space for manifestation. One of the affirmations that I want you to hold on to, and I'm gonna get some of these to you in your assignment, is I surrender all control. I trust in divine timing. I allow my desires to manifest in the perfect way at the perfect time. All is unfolding for my highest and greatest good. That's important. So how to surrender, the when and the how that we talked about a little earlier. You want to shift from expectation to allowing. So you get the expectation, you get the anticipation, but the key is to just be in a state of allowing. Easy breezy. It will come when it comes. You want to replace worry with trust. You know, when you are worrying, it's telling you that you need to work on trust. You don't work on getting rid of worry. Work on building trust. Ask yourself, why am I not trusting that the universe? And so sometimes looking back at what the universe has given you in the past will solidify the idea that I can trust the process. Okay, so you want to focus on the end. That's living from the end, not the process. You don't focus on what steps is going to take. What must I endure? Because sometimes the steps you must take to get to the championship, if you have to know all of those steps, you may not ever do it. If you have to know what you're going to endure, the prosecution you're going to go through, the persecution you're going to go through, and sometimes you just have to show up for practice every day. Practice don't make you perfect. Practice prepares you. You also got to recognize delays as divine adjustments. So the next time you have a delay, I want you to look at it as a divine adjustment. That's what you look at it. And you want to practice gratitude in advance. You don't want to shout when you get it. You want to shout while it's on the way. Okay? Don't shout when the battle is over. Shout before you go into the battle. And some of the things you can do throughout your day, you want to create some affirmations. You want to spend time in reflection. Sometimes we find ourselves doing one of these. But we got to do all of these. You got to affirm. When I'm frustrated, I have an affirmation. In between, when I'm not frustrated and I'm waiting, just go reflect. I can reflect on how far I've come, how close I am. Visualization, living from the end. Practice affirmations to align with trust. Guided reflections offer insights into your divine timing. You grow through your reflections, okay? And you want to use the visualization process to see yourself living from the end. These are practices you want to take on. Really important. Now, calming the storm. Sometimes we become anxious, and we're going to wrap it up here. Now, in the future, we want to set aside at least an hour for the teaching. Probably going to go more 30 into the 30 to 45 in teaching, and then want to use the rest of the time for dialogue, engagement. As we move through the assignments, and as I give you things, there'll be time for us to reflect and cover those things. But one of the stories I wanted to reflect on was in Mark 4:35. You remember the story about the storm and Jesus being asleep in the bow of the boat. The storm represents external chaos, the challenges, delays, and uncertainties that we're all going to experience. We're going to have storms. Then you have to understand the guys that was on the ship, they became anxious. And we need to learn how to deal with our anxious minds. When we look at the disciples from a metaphysical perspective, they represent the anxious minds that we have. The part of us that fear we won't be able to make it, that it won't be safe, that things won't work out. So it's your inner me that becomes your enemy. So you want to be listening to the many thoughts that you will have. And lastly, when you look at that story, look at it from the divine flow. When Jesus represents the divine flow, just like you represent the divine flow, the state of perfect ease and faith, where even the greatest storms don't upset your apple cart and don't disturb you. You don't react, you respond. You're a first responder, not a first reactor. Many of our things that we desire to bring into manifestation never come because we are reactionary to it. It looks like I won't get it because I didn't get the job, or they closed down the factory. So we're reacting to what we see. Example, I give you a quick example. When I came to St. Louis, I interviewed 3 different times for this job. And for a variety of reasons, I wasn't selected the candidate. The number one reason I found out was the person who took the job initially had more points because of they being a veteran also, but they were a veteran that had other points because of service-connected disability. Well, but long story of it, when I got wind by Spirit told me to call Silent Partner, and I called to find out if the job had been awarded, and they told me this was January 29th, and in 2019, they told me that the job had been awarded. I could have got upset. I could have just said, "Oh, I'm not going to ever get a position." But I went into the practice of call revisioning, and within a couple hours after I woke up from a nap, I got a call from HR saying the person, strangely enough, didn't take the job. They turned down the job, and I was the next man up. And many of us are the next men up, the next person up, but we give up. And because we give up, we don't get the opportunity to really walk in that thing. So we got to watch our anxious mind. We want to embrace your faith. And when I'm talking about embracing your faith, embrace your spiritual practices. Embrace the philosophy that you can win, the philosophy that you created, and learn the principles. When you do that, you're going to move from being frustrated. You're going to move to being in a place of expectation all the time. And ultimately, you move into the manifestation. Manifestation is science. Manifestation is faith in action. And so you got to embrace that you are faith in action. Now, I want you all to affirm with me tonight as we prepare to wrap up. I am, you can read it on the screen right where you are. I am always on time in divine flow. Everything I seek is seeking me in perfect timing. Believe these words and speak them with conviction. Embrace your alignment and receive your blessing. I want you to express gratitude for perfect alignment. I want you to trust, release, and receive. So I want you to begin to write down this weekend, between now and next week, starting tonight, write down one thing that you surrender to divine timing. It could be that job. It could be that desire to be in a relationship. Whatever you're seeking for something to be over, just surrender that it's happening, unfolding in divine timing. So as we wrap up tonight, the call to action is that you continue this journey from this week until next week. I'm going to send those of you who are on this call some information. I'm going to send you the playback. I'm going to send you some assignments, things you're going to work on, parts of the book that there. Now, here's what I want to get from you. The things that you hear throughout the 8 weeks, if there's something you don't understand and something I need to expound on more, go ahead and send me an email, and send me the email to greg@solutionsforliving.com. And I'm going to keep those, and I'm going to use those things to really formulate the book. So you kind of like my beta group. That's now some of the things you may be like, you may say, oh, can you expound on this a little further? Then guess what? It's in the book already. And so that tells me, you affirm for me that that piece needs to be in the book. And if it's not in the book already, then I'm going to see where this fits in. So you kind of help me do this thing. So that's important. So let me see where we're at now. So as we prepare to close out tonight, let me do this, take some of this stuff down. And I want to just open up the room. We're right at 8:29. 8:30 will be the longest we go. Anybody got anything they want to say, anything they want to share before we wrap up? I know it's kind of late tonight. We got a late start. I'm going to work on some things that we can get started right at 7 o'clock. So how did you enjoy that? Did you get anything out of that? Good to see you, Al, Lonnie, Rachel, Cheryl, and Todd. So there's a couple other people that wanted to be here tonight, but for some reason they couldn't get in. So excellent. I see we have some things here. I think, oh, there's Myrna. She's in the chat here. I think if you are right-handed, you point to your heart. If you point with your left hand, it doesn't point to your heart. I pointed with my left hand, and it pointed to my collarbone, but it was trying to get to your heart. That's interesting. Are you left-handed, Myrna? I didn't know that. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good observation. I'll take that into consideration when I do my presentations in the future. I'll look for my left-handed people. Awesome. Good. Anybody else? Go ahead. Al, you got the mic. You go ahead.
I enjoyed the teaching on today, and it reminded me of when you said, when you plant a seed, sometimes you see the seed, or do you see the tree? And it reminded me of like when people, or when you buy the seed packages, they show you the finished product as opposed to the seed. And what that helped me remind me of is that I had planted a tree once before, and the tree, it actually grew up to be like 3 stories high. But it took quite a few years, but I never took the time out to notice that the tree had grown to be that tall. So I just say sometimes I believe that for me personally, that sometimes in going through the process, you're growing and you might not even know it.
That's right.
And so I say thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's interesting. When I was a kid, my mom used to have me prepare the garden, and I would go with her to purchase the seeds. And sometimes I would be reading so I'll look on the front and you'll see what it is. And then on the back, it'll tell you what it takes to get what you see. It will tell you need to plant it 3 inches deep, or it'll tell you you need to plant it 6 inches deep, or you need to plant it on the first full moon. It tells you all of the things it takes. And the same thing, when Source drops a desire in you, then you have to listen to what you will need to do to bring this thing into manifestation, into fruition. Awesome. Thank you. Excellent. So that's all I have tonight. I appreciate your time. My time is well spent with you all. And if you got feedback, if you got anything that I should know, Greg at Solutions, SOULUTIONS for living.com. I welcome you all to send me constructive observations. I appreciate that. I don't ever use the word constructive criticism because there's nothing constructive about criticism, but I reframe it to say constructive observation. All right. That's all I have. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I'll chat with some of you in the 6 o'clock hour for the morning meditation. So if you want to know more about that, go to the website, solutionsforliving.com, and it tells you how to get in and what that's all about. Have a wonderful evening. Peace.